for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Howdy, good Saturday morning. I'm TC, this is MBRR Media, and this is Season 5, Episode 5 of Libertarian Lowdown. It's hard to believe that I've been doing the show for 6 years now, and that I decided to do this series a year into the show because of the number of people who were like, what's a libertarian, and why do they exist? And I'm like, it's a fair question. In fact, most libertarian organizations go, what are libertarians and why do they exist? And then they get into their little libertarian autism arguments. And there's lots of libertarian autistic screeching then when each person in the room decides to declare all the other people in the room are not real libertarians. So, that's why this show, this Season 5 exists. That's why this show exists. That's why the channel exists, is to talk about these things. So, like I said, I just can't believe next Saturday's year 6, April 25th, year 6, to the day. In fact, it was a Saturday then as well. And I showed up to my very first man on the street interview project where I was interviewing people in the anti-lockdown, anti-COVID measure rallies in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so here we sit today. I still go out and do man on the street stuff from time to time, but you guys are going to be thrilled with my guest today, Kerry Baldwin. If you want to know about her, you can read the description because we're going to bring her on in just a few seconds here. You know me, I always give the audience time to come in, but welcome here. And please hit that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the share. If you have ever considered helping the channel, now is a good time to do that. You can become a member, and there are perks. I do members only stuff from time to time. And here we are. I was listening to the opening music like I do every time, and I thought, wow, it was very militaristic for a guy who is an adherent to the non-aggression principle. Might be time to change the music, but yeah, anyway, if you've ever wondered why libertarians are all pro-choice and how anybody can claim to be a Christian and be a libertarian, let alone be pro-choice, you're in for a interesting conversation today, because one of the things that Kerry and I are going to be talking about is pro-life libertarians and why the ultimate position of all libertarians, not just Christian, not just Reformed Christian libertarians, but why being pro-life is truly the most liberty-minded libertarian perspective that there is, and why it's a consistent perspective for libertarians, and why it's not just an issue of control. It's absolutely not just an issue of control. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about Reformed theology and how it lends itself to libertarianism. And quite frankly, if you know anything about the history of my show and my philosophy, I'm not as polite as Kerry. So I have to be, you guys have to remind me to be on my best behavior today with my guests, by the way. So you guys know sometimes I can be a little sharp-tongued. But it was Reformed Christians that really sparked the American War for Independence, and they were all what we would call today libertarians. They were not conservative Republicans. They were classically liberal, and when I say classically liberal, I don't mean what the GOP normie-cons out there today look at anybody that's not them and go, you're a liberal. you're a libtard. No, they were classical liberals, and they were far more natural rights minded than any conservative Republican is today. That's for sure. Especially the hardcore, vote red till you're dead types. And they certainly are far more dedicated to liberty and freedom of conscience than anybody on the left. So when you look at it, you've got people on the left, people on the right, Democrats and Republicans, all claiming that they're all about freedom and liberty and honoring your rights. But really what you're dealing with is a group of people on both sides who ultimately want tyranny and oppression. They just want their guys to have the power to tyrannize and oppress you, because to them, that's their form of liberty. And then you'll have people like me and, I got Sarah Chicana for Liberty in the chat. She's one of my channel moderators. We're over here going, hey, what about us? We actually want real liberty. We want real freedom. And our theology, our philosophy, our whatever is most consistent with that. And that's why I do this show. And that's why I have been following Kerry's work for quite some time. She's kind of intimidating. I've had some people on, by the way, and you guys know that. I've had Dr. Rechtenwald. I've had Clint Russell. I've had Scott Horton. I've had Monica Perez. Yorove from Geopolitics and Empire has been on. I've had a wide swath of people. I've never been nervous to look stupid before. And so that's what I finally reached out to Kerry and I said, okay, here we go. I'd like to have you on the show. And her first response was, why? So I'm like, because I respect you. So I had to say all of that before I brought her on. So I got her laughing before I even get her in here. So, all right, folks, we've hit that magic number where we should be safe in the algorithm. So make sure you're sharing this out, and let's bring Kerry and find out. Just, you only get smarter by surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. Okay, that's exactly the truth. You only get smarter by surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. So this is a plus for me, and it's going to look bad for Kerry. So here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, that was a fun intro. Thank you.
Some strange guy that you've never even heard of just messages you out of the blue like a month and a half ago.
Right.
And says, hey, I'd like to have you on my show. And you're like, oh.
Man, so I have to confess that I hadn't, I get messages from time to time from people who want to interview me, and most of them have some connection to me already. And so I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware.
Who is this guy?
I didn't know who you were, and I hadn't heard about your podcast. And so I was like, okay, what's the angle? What do you want?
Is this a setup? I feel like this is not going to end well.
No. But no, this is great. I appreciate you inviting me on.
I'm serious, but I like to have fun with it, and especially when I have guests on, and so I really appreciate you doing this. Like my regular viewers, watchers, listeners will attest to the fact that most of the time my most severe, critical, angry stuff is never with guests. I always, even when I have a hostile, co-belligerent come on, which I do offer from, once to twice a year, I'll just find that one person that's just seems to hate me, and I'll be like, come on in, let's talk. You keep calling me names and say you can destroy me, and you tell that I'm philosophically inconsistent, and that that I'd be easy to wreck. Come on in, I'll bring you on. And then they proceed to melt down, and it's fun. I laugh during those are a blast. So you are not only a libertarian, predominantly you're, first and foremost, you're a Christian, and you're Reformed. And for those who are going, what's Reformed? What was she convicted of something? And they No, reformed theologically. So you hold to the tenets of what most people refer to as Calvinism,
Mhm.
but you have taken up the torch of being pro-life in a very should we say diverse political movement that
Mhm.
most of the time can't even pin itself down to what it means to
Right.
be a libertarian. But you bring up the issue of being pro-life and saying, look, no, abortion is not in keeping with libertarian values in the sense of it's see, even saying that is it makes it sound like I'm going, you're not a real libertarian if, and I don't like that perspective. I
Yeah.
think, but there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, if you're pro-life, you don't belong in the libertarian movement.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the history of, well, I'll just say this. There's the Libertarian Party, right? And then there's libertarian philosophy, which is born out of classical liberalism. Um, and in the party itself, the history of the party itself is interesting because they didn't adopt any position on abortion until post Roe, until Roe v. Wade was decided, and then they sort of like wiggled that into their platform. They were like, okay, this is going to be a thing, so we're going to take the side of that debate. And so, but at the time, it's not like they had a majority position in the Libertarian Party on abortion. You actually had basically three different perspectives on it. One was pro-choice, one was pro-life, and then the other one was just sort of, we're not sure what the take is, and it's not our issue. So at any rate, so there's that. There's the perception is that the Libertarian Party and by extension libertarians at large are historically pro-choice. But there was really no grounding in that. It was politically convenient because the party got started just after or just before Roe was decided, and then they moved to put that in their platform. And
it was an expedience thing for them. It was like, wow, this is a hot button issue, and we can really attract. And this is not meant to be a I get it. Politics is a weird game where you do have to do things that can be expedient, which almost always, leads to some form of compromise on values. But it became like really one of the sticking points, even early on in the history of the party, for people who maybe were Republican conservative would look and they're like, there are things Republicans are doing that I don't agree with, but I certainly can't be involved with that because of that issue.
Yeah.
And it has become such a hot button issue where, the Democrats are seen largely as being like, not just pro-choice, like rabidly pro-abortion, and Republicans are painted as being rabidly anti-choice. And it's a litmus test for both parties, which has made like your position in particular incredibly powerful within the libertarian movement and within the party, because there are a lot of pro-life libertarians who haven't been able to cogently argue a position without somebody stepping into the room and saying, oh no, we can destroy you on this topic.
Well, the debate, the conventional debate, which is what everybody is most familiar with, is a very emotionally charged debate. And so on both sides, so they have a hard time, both sides have a hard time making a cogent argument for their position, because at base is this emotional response to this underlying idea that women's rights and children's rights or fetal rights are at odds with one another, and that they're inherently so. And my argument has been, you can't have a consistent theory of human rights if it's inconsistent for 2/3 of humanity. You have men, women, and offspring. And if your theory does not account for 2/3 of it, it's not a cogent theory. And so now I have, my premise is that the libertarians are closest to getting it right with the principles of self-ownership and non-aggression. They've been misapplied in the past by people who argue for various forms of pro-choice. I think Walter Block made a concerted effort to make a consistent case based on self-ownership and non-aggression. I think he failed to do that, obviously.
Well, your debate outcome seems to validate your position. Yes.
Yeah. But that's really at issue in the conventional debate. What I've observed is that the pro-choice side will compromise fetal rights in favor of the woman, and the conventional pro-life side will compromise women's rights in favor of the fetus, and that creates this animosity between mother and offspring, and it's not only theoretically inconsistent, but practically it's inconsistent. How can you have a situation where the means by which new humans come into existence is itself a rights violation? Like that's certainly a bigger conversation, in terms of do women actually like being mothers? But that's not the question at issue. And we're saying, what are human rights? How do we know that they exist? How do we parse them out between people in such a way that's consistent and don't put them at odds with one another? And so that became sort of a driving question for me when I was exploring libertarian philosophy and whether or not my, more quote unquote conservative views were actually compatible, so to speak, with libertarian philosophy. And one of the things that I realized was, one, this issue of having to create a consistent theory of human rights, but two, conservatives have to grapple with the reality that women have rights over their own body. And that is something that, in the 1970s was a huge question and issue. This is why second wave feminism was a thing. It wasn't just the sexual revolution. It wasn't just birth control pills. It wasn't just access to abortion. It was questions like, can a woman be raped in marriage? Can a woman escape an abusive relationship without having to prove empirically, which is for lots of forms of abuse impossible, but without having to prove empirically in court that it happened? And so there are some much larger questions, and I even get into the question of rape. This is some of the newest material that that's going to be published soon in an updated version of the Faith Seeking Freedom book that I co-authored back in 2021. But even the definition of rape is not one that's based in non-aggression. It's based in harm, which puts the victim on trial.
Right.
And that is completely antithetical to how we treat murder and theft. Why are we treating women differently? So there's
strange you say that, because now I actually have been, doing what I do with like government accountability, prosecutorial misconduct, and tyranny and law enforcement tyranny. I actually do see now arguments being made by defense attorneys that the victim got what they deserved.
Yes,
literally,
it is absolutely absurd. And I mean, what's interesting is in philosophical libertarian circles, you have sort of two different strains. You have the Cato guys and the Mises guys. And the Cato guys they'll appeal to the principle of self-ownership, but not as strictly as the Mises guys. And I think it was, his last name is Walensky, who actually made an argument that the self-ownership principle was not a good basis for determining human rights. But I wrote an article, it's been a couple of years now, explaining why the non-aggression principle is the superior standard for determining if a rights violation has occurred. And I use the example of rape. When we're judging non-aggression, what we're judging is the person who took the action against another individual, right? If we're trying to evaluate whether somebody stole your TV, it's not, were you harmed by the loss of your TV? It's, did somebody actually physically go in and take your television set? Yes. Right. Okay. It doesn't matter if you were harmed as such. There was an act of aggression that was taken against you. And when it comes to rape, the question is, did it rise to the level of substantial harm? Well, what the heck is that?
And I guess it depends on how you felt about it afterwards. I don't,
Well, and no, that's it. I mean, that is literally the case. We've had court cases where there was one in California that always sticks out in my mind. A college student raped a woman, and what the judge considered is whether or not the conviction would hurt the rapist's reputation because he was a star swimmer for their local college. And so that was what was of concern to the judge, is how is this going to affect this man's reputation? And so questions like, well, did you, questions of the victim, like, did you invite it? Were you drunk? Things like that. And so then you start judging the victim. So we've had this legal history where women are judged differently for crimes against them than men are. And it's written into the legal code. I'm not saying anything that's quote unquote feminist. It's written into the legal code.
I love that preemptive strike, by the way. It's like, no, I'm not making a feminist argument. This is real. It's like telling people that men, even up until like the 60s, were considered the owners of their wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a very real thing. In fact, I was looking at the history of laws on rape, and at first they were considered property rights violations, which seems like it should be fairly close to the libertarian view, but it wasn't my property violation. It would be my husband's property violation.
Right. Which made it impossible for him to be accused of, convicted, and sentenced for doing an act like that against his own spouse, because it's, you're in, which is
right.
Essentially, the problem is that at every turn, then, until there is some form of embrace of that of liberty, not libertinism, but liberty, within the realm of every individual, that will never change. And that has been at its root, fundamentally, the core of all oppression in the world, let alone just here in the Republic, is like all oppression is who owns what and who has a right to what.
Right.
And if you begin to unravel years of established practice, you then become the enemy, and they have to find ways to discredit you, which has been, I know from having paying attention to you have come under various forms of that accusation from both sides of the argument. You're the hardcore right-wingers despise you because they think you're a feminist, and hardcore left-wingers despise you because they think you're some sort of, and radical trad wife who,
they think that subconsciously I'm still, I'm still subject to the, what's the word?
Patriarchy.
Yeah, the patriarchy. There's some word for it, but anyways, it's so funny. It's like, okay, patriarchalists don't actually believe that women can hold, intelligent conversations or be intelligent to any significant degree. But feminists do the same thing, because they're the ones who are saying to me, oh, well, you just hold these opinions because you're still beholden to you're subconsciously beholden to the patriarchy. Okay, so you're telling me that I don't actually have agency. So yeah,
Ironically,
I catch flack from both sides. And actually, interestingly, just one more point about the rape question and what feminists have done. So feminists have tried to move the needle on the definition of rape, to move it over to consent, a matter of consent. And that still doesn't fly, because it still it still judges the victim and not the
that's 100%,
perpetrator. Yeah.
right.
So
It's it is the top, and somebody's like, wait, we were talking about pro-life versus pro-abortion. How did we get to the euphemism in the YouTube world of grape? Because if you say that word too much, you get they're afraid you're advocating for it or not advocating for it enough, I guess. I don't know. People begin to lose the plot, because it comes down to what you were saying, which is the consent issue and self-ownership. And no matter what, like, the accusation is against you that you're still stuck in this misogynistic patriarchal mindset that you're just too beholden to, that, okay, well, now the left is denying your agency. And and that's the same thing, that if you boil down the issue of to the issue being just consent, then there's still an issue of, where does agency come in? Where does personal liberty come in? And if you're really going to go that far, then you need to be philosophically consistent. If you're going to always argue consent, then and this is an oversimplified argument that I use, I will always tell people, like, for me, abortion is a big problem, because you're over here talking about consent, but how are you getting consent from this individual human being who has a very distinct DNA code? Just talking about it from your perspective about science, how in the world are you getting consent from that child? Well, that's different. That's different.
Yeah. So the problem is that in order for them to hold a consistent viewpoint, they have to dehumanize the other rights bearer at issue, which is the fetus. And the irony with that is that every single argument that has been made against the rights of the fetus, or suppressing the rights of the fetus, every single argument, whether it be it's not human, to it's my property, to it's just a blob of tissue, to my circumstances are more important. Every single argument has actually been used against women and against an argument for women's rights, like historically, right?
Or minorities.
Every single one.
Or minorities.
Yes, and minorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is why everybody, well, if you read my Facebook post, this is why everybody's like, you libertarians, we don't know how to read you. We're like, what? You sound like, the left thinks we sound like hardcore right-wingers, and the right-wingers think we sound like hardcore leftists. And it's like, well, no, we're just using your arguments and dismantling them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it really comes down to, is what is the most philosophically consistent position that any socio-political, socio-cultural viewpoint can take. And if you're lacking consistency and you are not able to follow the thread of your own socio-political perspective to a logical outcome, or even follow arguments that you make to see if they're consistent with what you say you believe, then you're just a blind adherent to a position and not actually a philosophically consistent individual. And so for a lot of people on the left, abortion is philosophically consistent. They just don't believe, and this is, I'm not acknowledging this in a positive, but factually, they just don't believe that fetuses are kids, human beings.
Yeah.
They just don't believe that. They've convinced themselves that that's true. On the right, the people who are just, they absolutely value the child more than the mother.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely more than the mother. And you hear that in the arguments from many of them. If you pin some of them down, they'll say, even the mother will say, "Oh, I would much rather die than my baby," which again is good for you in that sense that, like, you're being consistent. You're like, you would, like, that's your life. If you want to sacrifice in that way, I guess that's laudable. But there are people who've never had kids, don't have kids on the right, who make that argument. Oh, the mother should be willing to sacrifice her life.
Well, I think what's interesting is, on the right, what you get is this very emotional argument. You should want your baby because they wanted their babies, right? Because they felt the emotional attachment. You should want to be a mother. There's been, a lot of new data coming out saying that the happiest women are women who are married with children. And I think that there's certainly some credence to that study, but the way that the right is using that is to say, see, all of these leftist women who are unmarried and don't have kids are unhappy because they're unmarried and don't have kids. And I think that does a disservice to motherhood itself, because
Right.
a woman who is ready to have children, right, who wants to use her body in that way, should be free to use her body in that way, assuming she's got a husband and all of that. But a woman who doesn't want to use her body in that way, or isn't ready to use her body in that way, that is perfectly and totally legitimate.
Right.
And, it could be anything from, I'm just not ready for it. I need to do X, Y, and Z first, whatever X, Y, and Z is. And, whether you find that legitimate or not is completely beside the point. What we don't want is a bunch of women having kids who don't want to have the kids and then resent having the kids because they were forced into doing it, or they feel forced into doing it. That's not a situation that we want to be in. That is just opening the door to more child abuse. And so I think it is perfectly legitimate for a woman to not be ready, and to not want to have kids, maybe even for her entire life. That's fine. The real question is does she have a right to kill her offspring because she accidentally gets pregnant for whatever reason, poor decision making, birth control failed, whatever. Does her right to not want to be pregnant and not want to have kids then extend to killing the fetus? Of course not. But her desire to not be pregnant and not have kids is totally legitimate.
Well, and I like how the conversation played out. I know, like, which, you would hope I would say with every conversation, but, quite frankly, sometimes I'm just like, okay. And the reason I say that is because I think with a topic like this, you can get so in the weeds on what abortion even is. And where, when does it become an abortion and when is it just a medical procedure? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's the reality is that there's so much more about both sides of the argument that tends to get missed. And what that is that you're both kind of forcing a perspective on society. And as I said, in my opening is like, you want your side to have the power to make that decision for everyone in the world. That's what it is. And the libertarian mindset steps in philosophically and says, hey, I could be consistently pro-life without and view an issue like abortion from a very moral perspective without wanting to elect my guy or gal, whatever the case might be, to step into the realm of authority over you to tell you what you can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And my consistent position as a person who has actually done pro-life advocacy work at outside of abortion centers, in conversations with people, is I don't want the government to, I don't want, like, when I became philosophically consistent, I even stopped saying, oh no, we need to have laws that would throw you in jail. Well, like, no, I want you to not want to do this, but not because you're afraid of going to hell, not because you're afraid of going to jail. I want you to not want to do this because I want you to do the right thing morally. And I think that has been one of the greatest weaknesses of Christians, especially on the right, and maybe even within the libertarian movement of Christians, has been the easy answer is always to get the government involved and make the government do the hard work.
Yeah.
That's, so when Roe v. Wade got overturned, everybody was like, oh, I suppose you're happy that all these laws are going to get passed. I said, the law's not going to change a thing about abortion. The great thing about the overturn of Roe v. Wade was not that now there's going to be a bunch of laws. It was the Supreme Court recognized that the federal government way overstepped its reach in Roe v. Wade through the courts.
Yeah.
And now the decision about how these are going to be handled how this issue will be handled is where it belongs, which is in the hands of the local government, the state predominantly. And ultimately there, for me, the issue needs to be what are we doing to impact the argument, especially as Christians, by talking about this less about whether or not you have a legal right to do it and more about whether or not this is in keeping with natural rights and with morality, period.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to have that argument because nobody wants to talk about morality in this issue.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say nobody, but.
Well, and I think, one of the big issues with the question of whether abortion should be illegal or not is less about whether we should consider abortion, legally as homicide, and more about what does the enforcement piece look like.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that really ticked me off to exploring a libertarian pro-life view is I heard a radio interview with Scott Klusendorf, who's a major conventional pro-life player. And one of the things that he said was that if abortion was banned, then a quote unquote war on abortion would look like the war on drugs. And I thought, no freaking way. Like, that has been a disaster. And so when I talk to libertarians, especially pro-choice libertarians, really the objections that they have is over enforcement. What's enforcement going to look like? Because if we're just going to repeat the war on drugs and now target women, then there's a huge problem. And I totally agree with that. I don't think that necessarily means that we can't consider abortion legal homicide, but what it does is it says, I talk about abortion as being a quote unquote canary in the coal mine issue. Are you familiar with the idiom of the canary in the coal mine? Yeah. So for those in the audience that don't know,
you're going to have to explain it.
Yeah. The canary in the coal mine. So coal miners would use, one thing that they were under threat from in the coal mines were toxic gases that had, you couldn't see, you couldn't smell, you couldn't taste. So what they would do is they would hang a canary at the opening of the coal mine. And the canary was sensitive enough that if toxic gases were around, then it would die. And that would indicate to all the coal miners that they needed to evacuate because there were toxic gases around. And so I talk about abortion as being a canary in the coal mine issue. The issue is less about, is abortion homicide? I think consistently you can say yes, it is. But the objectionable piece is what is enforcement going to look like?
Right.
Because we all know that there are women who are not, they're not the loud, bombastic, hyper feminists on the left who are saying, who are shouting their abortions from the rooftops and saying, yes, I'm killing my baby for birth control, and this is great, and this is an exercise of my rights. Like, that sort of militancy is so minimal. And I think most rational people understand that. What they're thinking about is the woman who is in crisis, right? Who she has an unplanned pregnancy out of wedlock. The boyfriend either is pressuring her or doesn't want to have anything to do with her,
or threatening her, like beyond pressure.
Threatening her. Yeah.
I mean, I have literally listened to guys in my former career. I've listened to guys tell their girl on the phone, sitting inside of a detention center, "You're what? Oh, you better get rid of that because I'll do things to you to make sure you get rid of it." I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, well, you've had instances of men slipping, their girlfriend's abortion drugs without her knowing it. And you treat this like a war on drugs situation. She shows up to an emergency room with drugs in her system. She's the one that's going to be in trouble, even if she didn't actually take it. At any rate, with the enforcement piece, what we're thinking about, what most people are thinking about, is this woman who's in crisis. She doesn't know what to do. She knows she can't afford it. She's in a bad relationship, and she needs like practical help. Right. One of my favorite pro-life organizations is Let Them Live, and they find women who are seeking abortions, but who desperately want a different answer. And what they do is they go in and they will actually like pay the bills for that woman. They'll fundraise money to pay her bills, and also give her training to help her get financially stable on her own. Right. That's exactly what she needs.
Which is ultimately the most philosophically consistent position for even left-leaning libertarians to take.
Yeah.
Because you're eliminating the government from the decision. You're eliminating any kind of rule or law. And you are stepping in at the ground level as an voluntarist, if you will, and saying, here is my position, and way huge, way over umbrellaing this.
Yeah.
This is the most philosophically consistent position for me as a libertarian, which is to come into your life and say, I don't want to force you to have this baby, but I want to have a conversation with you and I want to talk to you about it. And if your choice is, I'm only looking at an abortion as an option because I don't know what else I have, and in an organization that is not a governmental body steps in and says, here, let us help. That's a major moral victory.
Yeah.
All the way around.
Yeah. So one of the things that I argue is that, if we had a libertarian society, right, a libertarian government, I think that abortion would be considered a category of murder. But when you look at what enforcement looks like, what the, judicial process looks like, one of the things that we've learned is that retributive justice, which is the system that we have now, which is, you will be punished. You will be punished. You'll be put in prison. That does not produce recidivism, which is repeat offenses, and it doesn't create a deterrence effect, which is what like the militant conventional pro-life people believe. By making abortion illegal, they believe that it'll create a deterrence, and that's just simply not true. Like, we've got enough data to know that. I.e. war on drugs. Literally made drug use
worse.
Yeah. Literally. But there are two forms of justice that do produce deterrence, and they do have a very low recidivism rate. One is restorative justice, and then the other one is tort law. And I think in a situation in a libertarian society where it's illegal to have an abortion, I think a woman who's been found guilty of having an abortion, she can go through a restorative justice situation. And that restorative justice situation is literally saying, okay, how did you get into this situation? And how can we help you keep from getting into it again? Right. And it becomes a matter of, first, it allows her to take responsibility. This is one of the key characteristics of restorative justice that is different from retributive justice. In retributive justice, we are incentivized to not take responsibility for our actions. In restorative justice, we are incentivized to take responsibility. And that restorative process is aimed at not ruining your life the way retributive justice does. You know, now you've got a record, and now your reputation is ruined, and now, you know, you can only get so far in society. With restorative justice, it's really, okay, you are a part of our society, and there was an error made, and let's talk about what happened that got you there. And then you're having all of these conversations about, okay, what's the, you know, what was your economic situation? What was your financial situation? What's the situation with your boyfriend? Like, having those conversations and actually helping her get out of that is the biggest win. Even if she's actually gone through and already had the abortion. And so, at any rate, and then there's tort, and tort, I can imagine being used in a situation where she already knows, right? She already knows the impact of abortion on society. She already knows that she screwed up, and now she's got to like pay something for it. Like, tort is literally paying for your crime. Right. And part of the reason why tort is an effective deterrence is because people know what the payment's going to be.
Yeah, we all feel the payment of pain, or the pain of payment, depending on how you want to say it.
Yeah.
In various ways, you know, from speeding tickets to seatbelts. You know, when you talk about the way abortion's being handled now under the current system, we hear both sides use some mantra, some form of the mantra, safe, legal, and rare. And very rarely does either side actually have a solution set. If people know from the military perspective, well, you'll know because you're a vet. Air Force. So I'm not going to make any Chair Force jokes today.
Oh, you can totally make Chair Force jokes. I have 3 brothers and they make them all the time.
I was 82nd Airborne, so.
Oh, were you? My dad was 82nd Airborne.
Dude, just made me feel old now.
Gosh darn it.
No, I'm only 55, so.
Oh, well.
Don't tell me. I don't want to hear how old your dad is then. Don't follow that. Well, that's weird. My dad's 53, you know.
No.
When I say most of them don't know how to find a solution, and I'm thinking about it from a very military type perspective, which is especially like in the Navy, or even, you know, within the Air Force with long range targeting trajectory, you have to find a firing solution. And that firing solution is, we have to map what the target is. We have to figure out what impediments to hitting the target we have to overcome. And then we have to solve that solution and put that solution into action, and then take the shot. And so many times when you go, well, what's the solution? I'm going, you're asking the wrong question, because you think the solution is the end goal of your target, or not the end goal of your target. You think the solution is ending the problem. I'm telling you the solution is aiming at the target and then reaching it. Because a lot of people can go, oh, this is my target, and have no actual firing solution to getting to the target at all.
Yeah.
They just have already established what they want the end to be, and have not put any thought into it on a philosophical level of how to get there. And that's why I try to convince people when I'm having these one-on-one conversations, when it's just me and them, about whatever the topic might be, whether it's, you know, the war on drugs and decriminalization of drugs, or ending murder, or whatever the case might be, is let's talk about what the firing solution is and all the steps that we're going to have to take to get to the target.
Well, I'll do you one better.
That's why I have smarter than me people on the show.
I'll do you one better. I mean, I think yes, you are absolutely, like, yes, on the right track. The left's solution is literally literally kill the person that's the problem. And this is how you end up with, like, what Canada has with their MAID program, where you have sick people now, and the easiest solution to that problem is doctor-assisted suicide. It's literally to just kill the person. Oh, you're experiencing problems? Well, we should end your life. And
there are more and more stories coming out of Canada now where somebody goes in and is like, I'm feeling a little depressed today, and the first response is,
let's get you on MAID.
Have you considered MAID?
Yeah.
What? Like,
yeah,
I came here because I wanted help, because I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want you to encourage me to feel this way.
Right. So apply that exact rationale to women in crisis with abortions, right?
Right. Oh no, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And so, but on the right, instead of saying, here, let's find a solution, most of them are saying, this shouldn't be a problem for you. They won't even acknowledge that the problem exists. So what's the problem? Well, if we actually listen to women who are seeking abortions, the top two reasons for getting an abortion are financial hardship and bad relationships. And I said that abortion is a canary in the coal mine issue. If we had been listening to women about the reasons why they were getting an abortion, the solution is fix the damn economy.
Oh, she's using salty language.
I'm salty. It's fix the damn economy.
Remember when we were chatting, I told you I'm a little more crass, so that's like free here. Does Jacob know you use bad language?
Oh, he's seen worse.
Oh, okay. Anybody who's been around long enough knows I've had Jacob on the show too. So, but he's big time now. He has Dave Smith on his show, so now he doesn't even have time for me anymore. So I'm
so jealous. At any rate,
you're right. But that's exactly the issue. Is like I've never, in all of the times that I've done abortion type ministry when I was still doing street level stuff, I've never once had any young lady or a young man, married or not, as they're walking together into a clinic, ever say, well, you know, with her medical conditions the way they are, if she has this baby to term, she's going to pass away. I've never heard that. It's always come down to, we're not ready, we don't have the money, we don't want babies. And that's that canary in the coal mine perspective of, how did we get here? And that's the issue. And both sides of the argument, from the Republican perspective and the Democrat, and I'm way overgeneralizing, but I'm just going to use those because, you know, we're stuck in this stupid two-party system that has done nothing but damn us.
Right.
Both of them want the government involved.
Yeah.
And in control. And neither one of them actually want to fix the problem, which is, all of this comes down to money. For almost every time, it comes down to a fiscal struggle, a monetary struggle, an economic struggle for people. Absolutely 100%. And so even on the left, when they say, oh, okay, well, if this person chooses to have this child, then we'll step in and give them money from government, which is a state solution. It's a state solution. That their solution is always the state. state can either pay for the abortion, or the state can pay for taking care of the child and the mom. Or if the mom really doesn't want the child, then the state will take the child. And as you know, a couple of people in the chat have said, I had to take the chat off screen because it was distracting me.
Oh.
So I could still see it, but it's less distracting when it's not right on our main screen.
Right.
The reality is that they still want the state to take care of it. In the right, the Republicans want the state to take care of it.
Mhm.
Absolutely want the state to take care of it. And I'm saying if we could get the state out of every cotton picking thing,
Yeah.
we'd be all better off. There'd be
Yeah.
a lot less abortion if government stopped taking so much damn money from us. Just absolutely stop
Yeah.
taking.
Well, and the
To go
new
kill
thing,
people in other places, by the way.
yes, exactly. No, the new thing now on the right is a movement towards something called pronatalism. And pronatalism is still a big government socialist response to the problem of unplanned pregnancy. And so the pronatalist response is, okay, if women are, having abortions because they can't afford them, well, we're going to subsidize motherhood in these, various ways.
Absolutely.
Which only makes the problem worse, right? It's only going to make motherhood more expensive. And so it doesn't solve the problem. Yeah, maybe you're going to get women who are aborting less for some number of years, but it will catch up. And we know that because because everything's got, in healthcare right now has been caught up to the damage that the Affordable Care Act has done. We can't freaking afford healthcare, and nobody knew that until
it
the
says
subsidies.
But Kerry, it says right in the name of the act, Affordable Care
Affordable.
Act.
It says affordable.
It says it's affordable, Kerry. How can it not be affordable if it says it's affordable?
Right. Yes.
What is wrong with you? I thought you were the logical and
I
philosophical.
was the smart one.
Yeah, you're supposed to be the smart one. You were going to be like, Jacob, why did you not warn me? I'm never doing that again. I'm shutting down my private messages on Facebook.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, the Republicans aren't offering any solutions. And on top of it, the solution on the right, this is another thing that I bring up in the updated version of Faith Seeking Freedom, is the solution
on which, if somebody's interested in reading that, where can they find it?
So the updated version has not been published yet. It's going to be published this year. You can get the old copy on Amazon, but the new copy is literally twice as big. I don't think I have
so it's it grows like government. Way to be a hypocrite.
I know. Yeah. So the way that the book is set up is sort of a Q&A. So it is, the most common questions that libertarian Christians get about being libertarian and Christian. And so at any rate, one of the contributions that I made to the book was the chapter on abortion.
Any idea when the second edition comes out?
It should be this year. I want to say this summer. We're promoting it at Freedom Fest this summer, so it should be out shortly. I just don't have a date yet.
No. Oh, that's right. You're going to Freedom Fest, aren't you?
LCI is. They haven't given me a firm up or down as to whether I'm going to be there, but
and for those who don't know, LCI is Libertarian Christian Institute.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's a phenomenal organization, and there are some really big names in there. Jacob. There's some really big names in there, and now my brain freezes.
My brain's, yeah. So it
was 75 degrees here 2 days ago, and then we had tornadoes yesterday.
Ooh.
And now I woke up, it was 25. So
yeah, I did notice it was colder this morning. Anyways, the thing that I wanted to say about what the right is doing, what conventional pro-lifers want to do, is they won't even be honest with themselves about the fact that abortion is categorically murder, and instead they want to just ban the procedures, the medications, the tools that are used to have an abortion. And this creates a catch-22 for them, because if you can ban the tools that can cause murder, then there's nothing stopping them, nothing stopping the government from banning firearms because they cause murder.
Or knives if you live in Great
Or
Britain.
knives, or so they really, the Republicans are,
just as bad. Just as bad.
Yeah, they've got no philosophical grounding. What they have is nostalgia for, some number of decades ago that they want to go back to, and they think that they're going to get that through the coercive use of the law, and it's not going to happen.
There it is. There's that strong libertarian mindset. It's right there. That I heard that coming. I actually saw that one coming from. Well, no, but it's foundationally and fundamentally true. Is that the current crop of the GOP? Let's just be honest. That are making these arguments. As much as you want to be able to look at them and say, "Oh yeah, you know what? We agree. We're pro-life." We just can't agree because they're absolutely regressive, but they're hypocritically regressive.
Yeah.
They are aiming, like you said, for these good old days when it didn't happen, which, by the way, it did. It's been around for millennia.
Mm-hmm.
They're just hypocrites. They're big government control freaks, just like the left is big government control freaks. And for me, it was fun to sit back and watch the two sides like philosophically slaughter one another over issues like during COVID and then after, like, my body, my choice. Hey, wait.
What's up? Well, and I mean that's our
case, but
that's
our others.
Yeah, that's ironic though, because the Trump faction of the Republican Party removed the abortion plank from the Republican Party platform, and they're trying to move to a more safe, legal, and rare policy within the GOP. Like, they completely disenfranchised their pro-life base, and they had no problem doing so. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that all of Trump's shenanigans here recently will solidify and, get that faction kicked out of the Republican Party. I don't think that it will be enough to save the Republican Party, because they have lost any sense of what limited government is, why we need a free market, any of those principles that they used to be on, non-interventionism with foreign policy. Like, they've completely lost the plot with the rest of that stuff.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and this is, no one's going to believe me when I say, I'm going to say the most pro-Trump thing I've ever said in my life.
Uh-oh.
Trump is exactly what the original GOP was. I will give credit to the GOP and the hardcore mega loyalist. Donald Trump is exactly what Abraham Lincoln was aiming for. Because Lincoln was not a conservative.
Yeah.
Lincoln was not a liberty-minded individual. Nothing about Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator. I refer to him as the great enslaver. He freed not a single slave. Instead, he enslaved an entire country.
Yeah.
And that's and so the hardcore Trumpians, you know what? You're right. You are the true Republican Party. You are all about control and tyranny and forcing your will on others.
Yeah.
So that is the most pro-Trump thing I have ever said. And from a guy who's held his nose and voted for him. And please don't hold that against me. So I'm also willing to call out, people on both sides. Yeah, I think another place that libertarian Christians really need to get stronger on, and I want to use this to maybe kind of transition into a little bit about Reformed perspectives and how they lead to what I think is ultimately lead to libertarian thought, is that libertarian Christians that are out there especially the Reformed variety, need to get a lot better about calling out fellow Christians. You know, our judgment needs to be aimed far less at Christians outside of the Reformed theological perspective, and even definitely not aimed nearly as aggressively at people outside of Christianity. Look, we can make some commentaries about non-Christians, about morals and values when we see some of the things that are happening. But we need to get far more, if you will, judgmental about what's happening, or maybe especially within Reformed theology, Reformed Christian churches. And if you are one of those Reformed Christians or a Christian who is anti-abortion, Kerry, plug your ears for a second. Get off your ass and go do something about it. And when I say go do something, as an adherent to the non-aggression principle, I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about stop waiting for the government to fix the problem for you. Stop voting for the person who says they're going to fix this issue. Period. Yeah. No, if you are morally opposed to this based on your theology, then go have conversations with people. That's how you change a problem. You will never convince a meth addict to stop being a meth addict because you're going to throw him in jail. That never does it. And I can tell you 100% after spending nearly 13 years in the law enforcement career field of watching the government over and over and over again telling meth addicts, stop being meth addicts. And the meth addict says, as long as I'm in jail, I'll stop being a meth addict.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they get out, they have to want a reason to not do meth. And they're never going to have a reason or find a reason on their own, ever. No one ever comes to that. Like one day they just wake up and go, without any external influence, go, I just don't want to do meth anymore. There's always somebody that steps into their lives that says, hey, let's talk about this and how can I help?
Yeah. It's one major reason why I prefer the restorative justice model. With the retributive justice model that we have, I think it's very easy and understandable to see why a meth addict who gets thrown in jail and then released and then returns to meth is returning to meth, because now you are creating a record of all of his faults that follow him around wherever he goes, and he can't get away from that. Whereas with the restorative justice model, that is an active coming together of the community, and finding ways to actually help him get through that addiction and come out on the other side as somebody who's a productive member of that community. And then there's no record that follows him around. It's okay, we've been through this, we've solved a problem. Now go live your life. You have the tools to actually live your life and not fall back into this addiction. And it's way more human, I think. Now, I will say that I think that there are good reasons to keep a retributive model for certain criminals. There are people who just are belligerent in their crimes against people. Jeffrey Epstein comes to mind.
Well, it was great having this show with you.
But that's the point. Like, there are people who actually are malicious and evil, and you can't rehabilitate them. And so I think that there's a place for retribution in society, but it should be incredibly narrowed. We shouldn't be using retribution for every stupid infraction that a human being can make.
And I think that's where restorative justice actually ends up getting a bad rap, because most of the time, the people who deserve retribution, I couldn't, like, my brain was like, you're not going to get retributive. See, I was like, right now it's telling me, the word. I'm not going to let you say it. And we're going to prove to Kerry that you are exactly what you said you are, dumb. So the reality is that the left wants to use restorative justice on people who are actually victimizing people. people who are actually creating victims. And that's the thing is, like, restorative justice works very well for non-victim offenses. And I can't even bring myself anymore to use the word crime for non-victim stuff. I just now call it non-victim offenses because I don't agree with how the legal system handles non-victim offenses. We criminalize people for doing things, and as Wanda Mize said earlier, like drug addicts are their own victims. They are they're their own victims. But as an individual, you have a right to victimize yourself. You don't have a right to victimize anybody else. You have a right to victimize yourself. You have the freedom to victimize yourself. The government should not have the ability to step in and say, stop victimizing yourself. What? If I want to go home and beat myself up, that's on me. Quite literally on me. It's like, who are you? Like, if I'm not out like emulating myself in the public square, I have created victims by doing that. But if I'm going home and I'm just putting bamboo shoots under my fingernails and lighting them on fire, I should probably seek some mental health counseling. But that's still me. That's still, like, you have no right to tell me I can't do that. You have no power to tell me I can't do that. And so the guy who's using drugs is literally, he needs restoration and he needs help. The person who's victimizing minors, to me, there is no restoration for that. No. But what's the left want? They want those people. Oh, they just need help.
Yeah, there's definitely a right way and wrong way to do restorative justice. I interviewed a woman who is responsible for getting the program started in Claremont, Colorado. And I would say that it does work with situations involving a victim. But the key to that really is, number one, the victim has to agree to it. And number two, the perpetrator has to be willing to take responsibility. And when that happens, then there's a conversation between perpetrator and victim within a community. Like, it's not just them one-on-one, but it's within a group of people who care about both sides of that equation and care about improving things in such a way that the victim isn't victimized again, but also the perpetrator isn't perpetrating again.
Exactly.
Right? And that allows a conversation to take place that never takes place in the retributive sense. And that is the perpetrator gets to understand what their actions had, the impact that their actions had on that victim. Right. And that victim gets to hear about what led up to the perpetrator taking those actions. Right. And so there's this mutual understanding. Now, I've seen restorative justice done completely improperly. In Albuquerque, they say that they're trying to do it. But yeah, what you get is you don't get the conversation, because a feature of the left is that the victim shouldn't have to face their perpetrator. They shouldn't, like, it's re-traumatizing them, it's re-victimizing them. And certainly there are cases where that may be true, but the point is that the victim should be able to make that choice. And when you take that out of the equation and you just have the perpetrator and, oh, poor you, you've had a terrible life. Of course, you went and murdered this person. We feel super sorry for you. So, we're going to release you and you try again and you do better. Like, they're literally doing that here in Albuquerque. It drives me insane. And so what's our crime rate doing? Well, it's skyrocketing. And it's because they've actually removed that conversation, that very necessary, very hard conversation that actually builds bridges and bridges. So there's definitely a wrong way to do restorative justice. And I think a lot of people on the left who kind of like the idea because they're opposed to retributive justice, if you don't do it right, then, like, it's a disaster.
Oh, I have a friend, a very strong Christian friend, reformed like us, libertarian like us, who lives in Albuquerque, and he's like, they're biding their time. He and his wife and family are biding their time there. But he's like, we got to get out of here. Oh, it's become a hellhole.
Yeah.
And there again, it's so. I sound like I'm beating a same drum or trying to drive home a point. That might be because I'm trying to drive home a point. Government, whether it's controlled by the left or the right, never fixes a darn thing. It just doesn't. It just continuously makes everything you're trying to accomplish, it just stands in the way as a roadblock, and more often than not makes it worse. Absolutely. I'll just use a perfect example of how our world thinks today. I told a coworker yesterday, I says, I have never been more convinced that we live in a simulation and that it is falling apart. Than watching yesterday as Trump announced that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz, and that he's successfully accomplished his goal of getting the Strait of Hormuz open. And all of his people came out and cheered. And somebody's watching right now. I was like, I wonder, what's this got to do with the topic? And here's why, because this points to what government does.
Yeah.
And it's actually the Hegelian dialect. But you've never seen the Hegelian dialect play out as fast as we just watched it play in the last month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Create the problem, point out the problem, offer the solution to the problem, and then declare that you fixed the problem.
Yeah.
Donald Trump closed the Strait of Hormuz and then got the other side to say, yeah, let's open it, and then declared that he won a victory. So ostensibly, Donald Trump defeated himself. And that's government. That is government with the T.
Well,
left or right. That's what they do every time. Create the problem, solve the problem, declare victory.
Yes. And the Strait of Hormuz got closed this morning again.
No.
Yes, it did.
No. Just because Iran said they did it doesn't mean it's done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's exactly the whole play, because, the other side of this was the Strait of Hormuz was opened before Trump decided to bomb Iran.
It wasn't. I'm sorry. I'm a tad bit of a smartass sometimes. So.
Just a tad.
But I mean, yeah. But what you're talking about with Albuquerque is exactly, it's like the states, the cities in particular, Seattle and Portland come to mind, giving out needles to heroin addicts.
Yeah.
And then going, we've got to do something about all these heroin addicts. And what about all those needles?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I don't know where they got the needles. You gave them the needles.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
It's unfortunate, especially here in Albuquerque. Like, we have progressives that are just killing everything, and the right here is completely inept. And so
they're feckless. They're absolutely feckless. I mean, it's just oh wow. Well, on that note, so when such an encouraging conversation we just had. When you look at, like, first of all, in your Christian life, in your theological life, doctrinally, have you been reformed throughout your short life? Because I could tell you're much younger than I am, but throughout your life, have you always been reformed? Did you come to Reformed theology early in your Christian walk? How did you land there, and how did you get to this point where you're like, oh yeah, libertarianism and Reformed theology go hand in hand?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I was raised as a Lutheran in the LCMS, and
so was I. Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, and then walked away. It's like most LCMS do at some point.
Yeah. So, I was raised, baptized and catechized in the LCMS.
Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, for those of you
That's
who don't know what
yes.
we're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I for a time, so I walked away from the LCMS, but not Christianity as such. I explored some, non-denominational Baptist churches for a while.
Did you do
Got-
the fundy thing for a while?
Yes.
Speaking to my heart.
Yeah, that
Hey,
was.
I was so bad. I was so bad. I even went to Concordia I had
Oh,
a scholarship for track and cross country going to Concordia, and
nice.
I'm like, nope, I'm out of here, and went to the University of Montana for a while, and then I joined the Army. But anyway, yeah, I went
Yeah.
through that phase. I never
Yeah.
left Christianity. I ended up a dispensationalist for a while.
Oops. Well, God can forgive even that.
I love you.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so I spent some time in non-denominational Baptist circles, and that, I would say, in hindsight, was the biggest mistake of my life. But I,
Before today.
huh?
Before today. So
Yeah. But yeah, so I started becoming reformed actually when I was pregnant with my first son. So I had married a Southern Baptist, and as a Lutheran, we baptize babies, and I held to that. And my now ex-husband was Southern Baptist, but really only nominally.
so he was
But
Southern Baptist.
yeah, he's fairly typical.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Oh, we don't baptize babies," and so I just decided, well, if I'm going to, put my foot down on this, I need to actually know why and what I believe about this. So I started researching it, getting into the doctrine of baptism, and the doctrine of baptism is related to so many other soteriological doctrines. That is, doctrines related to salvation. And
I'm clicking, I'm hearing all of this, and I'm like, well, stop.
wait, audience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's funny because what I landed on as what I believe to be the true doctrine on baptism, and particularly infant baptism, was not Lutheran, it was Reformed.
You're a Presby now, aren't you?
Yeah. So,
OPC, PCA.
oh, well,
They don't let me say it.
there's no, I was OPC for a while. I left the OPC because my particular congregation was being spiritually abusive. So now I'm homeless, so to speak. I attend an LCMS.
Are we talking CREC levels of abuse?
I don't think so.
You know what I mean when I ask that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I say I don't think so, mostly because I don't think that what I experienced was informed by that. But there was, I went through a divorce when I was at the OPC, and my then pastor and session supported it. And then my pastor left, and the session eventually decided through their own actions and decisions towards me that they didn't want to have to deal with the fallout of a woman and her kids who had experienced an abusive marriage. And
you got the scarlet letter.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to make fun of you. It's just and once again, even churches will show that, like, there's so much like vacillation. Like, they just vacillate just all over. You just never. Yeah.
They were much more interested in the outward conformity piece than actually being helpful. And
Oh,
so, yeah.
I need to introduce you to Kevin, my friend in Albuquerque.
Mm,
He
sure.
is I actually helped him walk out of an incredibly abusive church in Iowa, and we have covered that numerous times. He writes about it on his he writes on Substack now too, and he has his own website called Churches That Abuse. Or the topics that he covers fall under the umbrella of his series called Churches That Abuse, and you would love him. You would absolutely. He's right in your wheelhouse as far as talking about Christian issues from a libertarian perspective and what church abuse looks like. And
I'd love to connect with him.
Yeah, I will make that happen.
We are a dime a dozen out here in the desert.
Well,
I tell people we're a desert in more ways than one.
Oh, we've talked about that. So they're struggling with some stuff right now, even.
Yeah.
So you end up. So you're like me. You're churchless.
Well, I
homeless
do.
In the sense of you don't know, like, where am I supposed to go? What am I?
Yeah, I do attend every week at an LCMS church, who has graciously taken me in as their resident Calvinist, and
I have a very good friendship with the LCMS pastor here, and he's like, "You're more Lutheran than my Lutherans are."
That's what my pastor says. He's like, "You're Lutheran." I'm like, "No, you just didn't give Reformed enough credit."
You just, I just use words you understand, Pastor.
Yeah.
I used Greek and sometimes Hebrew words, and I say things like soteriology, eschatology,
yeah,
hamartiology.
Yeah.
You know, what's the Odyssey? What?
Right.
That's a book that was written years ago about the Odyssey. No, Theodicy.
Theodicy.
Yeah,
it's fun.
So how did you land? And like, I'm churchless because every single church that I would have been willing to attend all shut down during COVID. I begged them at the second round of shutdowns in Minnesota. I wrote a letter to the board of elders and the teaching pastors, teaching elder, and the senior elder. And in the session, I begged them, please, the second round of shutdowns comes, please do not close the church. I'm begging you, please do not close the church. And then we'll take that into consideration. I wasn't a member, but like, we'd been going faithfully. And they're like, we'll take that into consideration. And then Governor Commissar Walls of the People's State of Minnesota ordered the state shut down to include churches, and the church closed for a few weeks. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I like you people, your forefathers started the American War for Independence, for the love of God. You started the Black Robe Regiment. you did it. Where are you? So how do you go through all of that and then go, you know what? I think I'm a libertarian.
Well, so that happened way back in 2008 with Ron Paul. I am an OG Ron Paul revolutionary. The housing crash and that whole debacle was a huge thing for me. I remember watching news at the time and hearing, senators and congressmen on the floor saying that bailing out the banks because of the mortgage lending situation was passing on this debt to their children. And I had this just moment of clarity. I was like, this guy's talking about me. I'm the children that you're passing this down to. And so that election was the first time that I actually had an opportunity to vote in a Republican primary. And that
hurt.
Yeah.
Hearing
Sorry.
you say that's the first time I had a chance to vote in a Republic.
I graduated in 1999. At any rate, so yeah, my dad was I would say a constitutionalist, more or less originalist in his views, and so that got I had sort of taken that in as part of my own identity. And so as I'm looking at this field of Republican candidates, I'm like, how the heck do you choose in a primary? And so, I did what any reasonable person would do. I went and read the Constitution again to see what the executive power was supposed to do and not do. And realized that Ron Paul was the only one who was paying any attention to the Constitution. And
the heck you say?
The heck I say. And at that time I was already out of the Air Force. The hardest thing for me to be persuaded of was Ron Paul's non-interventionist foreign policy. But
there's
I
always a sticking point, isn't there? There's always it's just like
the sticking point.
I'm just like this close, but
yeah. So that was a sticking point. But at any rate, so I became a follower of Ron Paul, and then in that same time frame, I also found the former Libertarian presidential candidate Michael Bednarik, his classes online on the Constitution. And so I got his book, Good to be King, and started reading that. And reading that a license to drive was a permission from the government to operate my vehicle was like, I was like, holy crap.
You're like, before anybody was even talking about it, you're like, that sounds like some sovereign citizen garbage right there. It's like,
yeah, I did get introduced to the sovereign citizen stuff. And so at any rate, but yeah, that's where I became a libertarian, was in 2008.
On YouTube, and then next thing you know, it's all over. Then you're talking to freaks on Facebook that want you to come on their show. And it's just,
so yeah.
So what, not what appeals, because I say this genuinely, I don't think there's anything about all the you're not a real libertarians I'm gonna end up clipping this out and putting it up. There's nothing about libertarian philosophy and saying I'm a libertarian actually appeals to anyone, in the sense of, that sounds like fun, being hated by everyone, because that's what ends up happening. And as I came out of the libertarian closet, realizing that I had gotten out of GOP politics years and years and years ago. I got so disenfranchised about politics by the Republicans in the state of Minnesota and across the country, that I literally went from being the vice chair of my county party to getting out totally. Like, I didn't watch Fox News. Nothing. I just got out.
Yeah.
I'm done, because nothing about either side appealed to me at all. And so when you look at libertarian philosophy, you don't even realize you're a libertarian. You're just like, yeah, that's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't appeal to you. It just attaches to you. And you're like, now I know why no one likes my views. Which translates to hate. They end up hating you. And I've seen that play out since 2020, when I started the show 6 years ago this month. All the MAGA people were like, you're MAGA. And I'm like, no, I was never MAGA. Yes, you were. I'm like, never once did you ever hear me say MAGA. Well, you voted for him. Yeah, I did. But that doesn't make me MAGA. I was just trying to keep somebody that I knew was worse from being in office.
Yeah. That's
all I was trying to do. And now it's like the lies and the hate from MAGA. I talk about the people who run around calling people snowflakes. I've never seen a bigger group of snowflakes in my life, and they absolutely hate the libertarians. They hate them.
They hate them. I will say this. I do think that libertarian sentiment, even if people can't describe themselves consciously as libertarians, I think libertarian sentiment is alive and well. Obama got elected on libertarian sentiment. And Trump in this, in this previous election got elected on libertarian sentiment. And so I think really what people push back against is one is they don't even realize that their views on a free society, how society ought to operate, is anywhere remotely close to libertarianism. And I think part of that has to do with just, stereotyping, which some libertarians absolutely do not help. There's this stereotype that libertarians, that libertarians are just a bunch of pot smoking, prostitute purchasing, libertines who don't want to pay taxes and don't want to be left alone. And
I mean, it's true. I don't want to pay taxes.
And we have a principled reason for it. Gosh darn it.
And I do want to be left alone.
I
feel like Rambo from the original movie. I just wanted to be left alone.
Well, but that translates, I think, to some people as we don't want government or governance at all. And I think that's a mistake. Like when I think of a libertarian view of civil governance, yes, it is strictly limited, but it is limited because what we need it for is so important. We do need the adjudication of disputes. We do need restitution for rights violations. Like those are very real needs in society. Now,
your Calvinists coming out there.
Well, I think that that's the libertarian view. I mean, I'm a libertarian anarchist, and lots of people think that anarchy, or anarchism is a complete and total disregard for civil governance. And I think it is the highest respect for what civil governance ought to be.
Right. That is why our founders, coming from a predominantly Reformed background, not all of them, but predominantly a Reformed Calvinistic background, or Calvinistic Baptists, or there were some Lutherans, predominantly Presbyterian types, which is why King George is like, I don't need any more of this damn Presbyterian war.
Yeah.
He was a little biased anyway, but he was losing his empire too.
Right.
Presbyterians. But it arose because you had guys like John Calvin centuries, before, writing to the King of France, Institutes of Christian Religion, and in other places, he's writing things and he's saying, and my favorite quote, and this really got me in trouble with my my mother after the first Trump election, when I told her I couldn't vote for him then in 2016, I couldn't bring myself to vote for him. And I said, I think you're making a very, she's still in a fundamentalist, independent fundamentalist Baptist church. And so, some things. And they were all in. And I'm like, Mama, I just don't know how you can support him. It's not in keeping with your Christian values that you say you hold to. And we went back and forth. And the day after the election in 2016, she said, so how do you feel about it now? And I just sent her a meme. It was a picture of John Calvin, and next to it says, when God wants to judge a country, he gives them wicked rulers.
Yeah.
And that, I will tell you, I can't find any quotes that back this up. There's no historical documentation for this, but I think knowing what you believe and what the Libertarian Christian Institute believes, I think it's a tangible reality to say that was on the mind of the founding fathers from the Reformed perspective when they wrote the Constitution, when they fought the fight that they fought. They knew they were living under a wicked ruler, and the Bible does say that God does appoint. But what's that appointment? Sometimes that appointment of rulers is very specifically to judge. What was the first thing he said to the Israelites in the wilderness when they're out there demanding a king like all the other countries or all the other nations?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You want a king just like all the other nations. Have Saul. There you go. There's your king like all, and guess what? He was like all the other kings.
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me, there's another book that's coming out that LCI is publishing that you'll probably want to take a look at. And it's for
You think I read?
you will now. It's I'm not sure what the title is exactly yet, but it is for different theological perspectives on libertarianism, and so one of those is the Reformed position. So my co-host on the Reformed Libertarians podcast, Gregory Baus, has written a lot of that, and he goes through a lot of that history of how we came from the Protestant Reformation to America, and how we went from establishmentarianism to just establishmentarianism. And it's a very interesting read. I think that you'll enjoy it. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Let me know when that comes out. I don't know if you can't see it, but behind my two signed Scott Horton books,
I can see the Scott Horton books.
Between the the two signed.
Signed.
That's my only clout right there, by the way. But behind them, they're resting against Calvin's commentaries. So,
oh, nice, very good.
Yeah. So sometimes when I say bad words, I think, oh,
Calvin's watching.
Yeah, Calvin's always watching. Well, what's funny too is that I've got the Lutheran Study Bible up here, and then I actually have their concordance on the other side. So
nice.
And that was a gift. That was a gift from that LCMS pastor that I told you about.
Yeah.
He's like, you should read this. I'm like, hey, thanks. But no, I do think that it. And here's another reason why I say what I say about, and I want to see if you agree with me. I'm trying to remember you're the guest and give you more time to talk. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
One of the reasons that I think that libertarian philosophy, and therefore being a libertarian, is in keeping with being reformed, is that the Calvinistic thought, reformed theology, by and large, in and of itself, is it attracts nerds. Let's just be honest. It attracts nerds. We think we're cool, and then we look at some of these really cool, Calvinistic pastors, because they're wearing skinny. Well, not anymore. I don't think skinny jeans are popular anymore. But they're up on stage, they're walking around, in a V-neck shirt and saying really Calvinistic things, and we're still nerds. We're more like R.C. Sproul. I cried literally in the middle of TJ Maxx the day he died. Somebody's like, RC just died, and I just stood in the middle of TJ Maxx and cried. And somebody's like, what do you you don't I've never cried for anybody in my life, but when RC died, I was like,
yeah,
we're not going to get any more new RC. And some people was, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, somebody I care about just died. And they're like, that's terrible. I'm like, it's not what you think. But we're nerds, but we're thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't we do the thing that a lot of Christians don't allow themselves or other people around them to do. We read things by people we don't agree with, and we read philosophies of people who are not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look back at Rutherford, when he wrote Lex Rex. Okay, maybe I'm not as stupid as I say I am, but I'm still not as smart as most. But when Rutherford wrote Lex Rex, that was a devastating critique of the king and against authoritarianism, and in keeping with Christian liberty. But he wasn't doing that on his own. He was doing that from an Aristotelian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He was leaning on guys like Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to a nod to your profession, or not your profession, but your expertise, is Socrates and the Socratic way of studying and engaging and teaching. And so you have this very strong Aristotelian Socratic background to guys like Luther, Calvin. They laid heavily on Aristotle for how they approach things, and even the Stoics to some degree on, because Reformed we're very well known for we're even more buttoned up tight than the Lutherans are, like you guys are boring. No one has any you see the guy that walks into a Presbyterian church for the first time and they're playing, like Be Thou My Vision, and this guy's heard Be Thou My Vision like 15 times in his non-denominational community church, and his hands up in the air, and everybody's like,
yeah, what are you doing?
we don't do that here. That's
We don't
not,
do that.
we're not that. No, we don't. Just sit down.
It's that mean from Black Panther. We don't do that here.
Right. And so there's a strong history of what liberty is, what morality is, what is goodness, what is righteousness, what is what are ethics, in this vein of Reformed thought that eventually leads to guys like Rutherford, and then along comes John Locke. Who's John Locke leaning on? Everybody goes, John Locke leaned heavily on Aristotle. Well, to a degree, but John Locke took Lex Rex and rewrote it.
Yeah, John Locke was totally reformed.
Yeah, he just took Lex Rex and rewrote.
Yeah,
Lex Rex.
Well, and it's interesting. One of the things that that I found interesting. I don't know if you know this, but I started a micro high school in Albuquerque. And it's totally Socratic.
No, folks, that's not a school for really short high school.
Micro. But one of the things that we do is we have a lot of Socratic discussions. And right now we're having some Socratic discussions on the Middle Ages and their views of civil governance. And so the kids are learning from Augustine and Aquinas that their first, their writings about what civil governance is and grappling with, what's it for? Why is there laws? All of these really foundational questions, those were all asked in the context of the fall of Rome. And, why did Rome fall? And if it fell, was it actually genuine civil governance? Like, how do we measure these things? And so it seems like to me that the Reformation was not only a reforming of Christian doctrine and getting back to historic orthodoxy, but it was continuing this ongoing conversation about the legitimate role of civil governance.
Right. And,
do they have the power to do that? And so what you have is this sort of evolution of thought that, it's not just in the abstract. Like these people put things into motion on the basis that, hey, maybe this is going to be a way that we can adjudicate disputes and that sort of thing that prevents the fall of the government that they experienced it with the fall of Rome.
That's directed at you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And I know, Jen,
much.
she meant than I did in school, or didn't might be appropriate too. So yeah,
I really appreciate that. But yeah, so this has been a long conversation over centuries and centuries. And I think what we are experiencing right now, this sort of goes back to the abortion question and what's going to be the solution to ending the practice of abortion. I think one thing that we are really grappling with right now is the question of whether civil governance has to be monopolized by the state. In order to have a good civil order that is, when I say good, I don't even mean morally good. I mean something that operates well and administers justice. In order to have that, we're revisiting those questions. Does government have to be so big? Does it have to be monopolized? Or is this something that, maybe there are solutions to problems that exist elsewhere that don't require violence? And, one of my primary arguments with the abortion debate is that the thing that's going to solve that problem is not government, it's the market. It's the market being free to provide those solutions, whether they're, solutions for preventing unwanted pregnancies or solutions for providing for women when those unwanted pregnancies or those unplanned pregnancies occur, and those solutions being life affirming. So the market has a big role to play that has sort of been the subtext
Yes.
over centuries since Augustine and Aquinas were grappling with this idea of, why did Rome fall? So.
Well, and when you take the word market, and we use it broadly in a lot of ways, the supermarket to, the stock market to the petroleum market, to make it, the market is really just economics, and there's economics from the financial perspective, and then there's economics of the life. There's a life economic perspective, but it just comes down to a market where what's going to fix this, and then people go, well, because we've been conditioned to think that what's going to fix the market's going to be more governance, and they hear governance and they think the state. And and if you look at Rothbard's argument in Anatomy of the State, he actually corrected me, because I would run around going, well, there's a difference between the state and government. No, Rothbard's argument is the state and the government are the same thing, because you have to, you're giving your consent to both. You can't, I'm way simplifying it. But when you really look at what he's saying about the state, and that if you want governance, you don't need the state to have governance.
Yeah.
Governance is an individual thing where you can choose to be in a relationship with other people and come together in an agreement about what governance is going to look like. What most people think about in governance is they think of government, and they go from government to an authority. When they go to authority, they think to a supreme authority, which is why the vast majority of people in the United States go, the most powerful person in the country and the world is the president of the United States, which is a completely
we mistake
backwards view of how our founding fathers wrote
the
Constitution and their perspective. They wanted the people to be superior to everything.
Yeah, it's a mistake to attribute authority to hierarchy. Right. Now, that's not to say, like in what's known as a polycentric legal order, which is the fancy word for philosophical anarchism, what you get is you don't have a single entity that is in charge of, say, the court system. Right. What you have is a bunch of like, I can go to, if I want to purchase services from somebody, there are many options that I can go to, right? If I want to get my carpets cleaned, there's this company or this company or this company or this company. And so in a polycentric legal order, the service of adjudicating disputes then becomes a service that is provided for by the market. And so
right now somebody is going, wait, you mean I could shop my legal case around?
Yeah, you could.
That would be ideal.
Yes. And you would go, those businesses providing that adjudicatory services, they are subject to market forces. If they provide good service and they render just judgments, people are going to know. They're going to get Google reviews about that, right?
You sound like you believe in free market economics.
Oh, I'm an absolute freaking market anarchist. So, but like, that's the idea. So it's not that we're opposed to governance. It's that governance is too important to leave it to the state.
Well, and you can't get away from governance. There's always going to be governance. Like
There has to be, yeah.
Every anarcho-capitalist acknowledges that. You cannot, you will always have governance. Even if you break it down to the family, there's always governance. Like the kid doesn't get born and then walk into the living room 3 days after he's born and go, by the way, I'm in charge. That's actually not true. The kid does actually take over. You know what? Never mind. Argument defeated by me.
Even in the case of the family, I love this because the whole like trad life thing that's happening right now. They want to make the argument that women belong at home, being homemakers, being housewives, and that sort of thing. And they appeal to scripture for this. But when you look at scripture, when Paul is talking about women being workers of the home, the Greek word that he uses is the same word for economy or economics. And I think that if you understand what economics is as economizing, as making decisions and building relationships with people and trading for mutual benefit, then the role of the mother, the role of the wife isn't just about, cleaning a house and making dinner and making sure that the home decor is nice. It's literally making these economic decisions and being a part of sending price signals and even regulating industry. Like women already do this to some degree. That if you need a product or service, you have a better chance of getting a great review or recommendation from a woman who's actually explored that question than just some piece of advertising on the internet.
Well, it's funny what you're describing here. It sounds a little bit like something that I know you already know where I'm going, so I was going to show it on my screen, but it's not cooperating with me right now.
So
there's this passage of scripture that says, an excellent wife, who can find her? For her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life, and she looks for wool and linen. Sounds like she's out in the market. And works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. And she rises while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her attendants. She considers a field and buys it. And for her earnings, she plants a vineyard and she surrounds her waist with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her profit is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands.
She's an economist.
She's an entrepreneur. She's an entrepreneur.
She's an entrepreneur, and she's an economist, not in the academic sense, but in the truest sense of that term.
I like every time, and I'm not some weird like egalitarian, and I don't mean that egalitarian is bad, but like Christian egalitarianism is a little like weird. There are roles.
Yeah.
There are roles, but like true Reformed Christianity looks at this and says, she's building businesses.
Yeah.
And the success of her husband, everybody looks at her and goes, you want to know why he's successful? It's her, which is really the ancient biblical Hebrew way of saying behind every good man is an entrepreneurial woman. And so
I think there's a wonderful quote from I think it's G.K. Chesterton, who says that
is it about cheese? Because he talked about cheese a lot.
He did. No, he said something along the lines, I'm going to butcher this quote, but he said something along the lines of all occupations that exist for the one primary or foundational occupation, which is motherhood. And so, this is part of the reason why I go back to economics as being the solution to the abortion problem. It's because, when I say listen to women who are saying they can't afford this, that's not an emotional appeal to a woman who's experiencing some sort of hysteria.
Right.
She is sending a freaking price signal, and people aren't listening to it.
Right.
And that's important. She has, she's not necessarily educated in academic economics, but she has an intuition about it. And she has an intuition about it because what she does best, what she was designed for, was to rear the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very, very powerful position to be in. That is
and
more powerful than the president of the United States.
Dad was only meant to go out and fight war.
Oh my gosh.
And kill things with his bare hands.
Yeah.
Like a real man. No.
So
I'm gonna get ready to wrap up here because we've been doing this for 2 hours and it doesn't feel like it. Normally I do a 2-hour show with somebody or longer, and I'm like, no, I felt every minute of it. Especially when I have a politician on, even the ones I like, I'm just like, oh, for the love of God.
Yeah.
I do have to ask. So I see a little nod to maybe C.S. Lewis here on the screen. I couldn't possibly imagine, what that.
Mere Liberty is a nod to Lewis and his title, Mere Christianity. Mere, in this sense, I actually learned has lost the meaning that Lewis meant for it. So mere Christianity is Christianity at its most fundamental core. Mm-hmm. And so mere liberty is liberty at its most fundamental core. So
it's kind of like the word nice. When you look at the etymology of the word nice, we're like, oh, you're so nice. Oh, you're so kind. When you tell people that they're nice, you're telling them that you think they're worthless and useless.
Oh my gosh, I've never looked up the etymology of the word.
When you look up the etymology of the word nice, it really comes from it really rose to fame, or not fame, but to heavy usage in places like France and whatnot, where the aristocratic class would walk around in their buffooned hair and they'd be all done up in their makeup, males and females, and they'd have their high heel shoes on and they sure, they were worthless. They offered nothing to society. But they looked nice, They
look nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
They had absolutely no. So when somebody goes, "You're nice," I'm like, "Wow." What? Well, so tell everybody a little bit about where they can find you and why you promise you will never subject yourself to this again.
No, this has been fun. So yeah, you can find all of my writing.
All the random podcasters who want to have you on their show.
You can find all of my work at mereliberty.com. I've got a podcast called Dare to Think, which I will be relaunching in the very near future with a mini series that I've been working on, actually arguing against and taking down 4 views. I said 4. 4 views on womanhood and manhood, and that is patriarchalism, complementarianism, egalitarianism, and feminism. I argue that it's actually creates a false paradigm and is antithetical to the historic faith, but also completely illogical. So I throw that in there.
If you're going to aim big.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, part of that was born out of the fact that, patriarchalists think I'm feminist and feminists think I'm patriarchalist, and I'm neither. But let's see what else. Yes, our book, the updated and expanded version of Faith Seeking Freedom, Libertarian Christian Answers to Tough Questions, will be published by summer. You should be able to get that on Amazon. And then the other podcast that I'm on is Reformed Libertarians podcast. You can find us at reformedlibertarians.com. I mentioned the book that we're putting together for that. And
who do you host that with?
so my co-host is Gregory Baus.
Mhm.
And unlike a lot of podcasts that are like in short form or interview format, that is much more scholarly and dense with philosophy and theology. And
So
so
nothing like this show.
what I like about it is if you are actually wondering, okay, how do these things actually square with these doctrines or Bible passages that I've heard, like we address 1 Samuel 8, for example, and that sort of thing, or Romans 13, like you will get a good treatment from a theological and philosophical perspective on that podcast. So it's good stuff. We don't have a regular cadence to that podcast, and mostly because there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into creating each episode.
Well,
But
you're
it's
doing research.
yes, lots of research.
Yeah. People, I think, and I know I can. Here's a place where you can both speak from experience. People do not understand, like even doing a live stream. People are like, "Oh, you just get up there and you talk," and I'm like, "You have no offense to anybody who's watches the show. I think everybody who is a regular viewer, channel members, channel subscribers, anybody who stops by and decides they want to keep sticking around." Please don't ever tell your favorite podcaster or showrunner or whatever. All you do is get on live stream or a recording and you just talk. And I'm like, you have no idea. Like when I'm doing my deep dives into the tyranny and government abuse stuff that I cover, even the stuff that looks like I'm off the cuff, I have been reading about it and studying about it and and I've got a volunteer researcher who's like, if I had any money, it would all go to her because it takes a lot to not just to put a show together, but to just have something to talk about and not sound like a blithering idiot.
Yeah. It's for both our Reformed Libertarians podcast and Dare to Think, we made a conscious creative decision to publish quality over quantity. And so, the result is that there isn't a consistent podcast schedule that people like, but the content is way, way better than.
It's like watching the people who started watching and listening to Daryl Cooper from Martyr Maid after October 7th of a few years ago, who now they had the time to listen through all of Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem, and they could do it all in a week because they were listening to it while they were driving to and from work and stuff. And now he's working on his new series about World War II, and you could tell all the people who have no idea what goes into making a show because they're all like, "Where's the next episode?"
Yeah, right.
I need it right now.
Yeah. Well, and that actually reminds me, the other thing that I offer through Mere Liberty is an online course in critical thinking. So this is actually how
free for.
So I get it for free. This is actually how the high school that I founded here in Albuquerque got started, was through my course online. It's called the Liberty Seminar. And it is teaching critical thinking skills using the Socratic method. And most critical thinking courses will teach you like debate or how to argue. And I actually teach it the way Socrates taught it, which was as a form of discovery. And so it's very much more reflecting on your own skills, your own thinking, your own ability to dig in and find answers to things. And so, that's also available on my website.
And what Socrates would say to that is, so Kerry, why do you think that's important?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
I had somebody asked me one time, was like, why do you always ask people questions? I'm like the question you just asked me?
Like, yeah.
And she goes, you just did it again. I'm like, that's the point.
That's the fun part. Yeah.
And the great thing about the Socratic method is, and I'm going to probably bastardize it here and ruin it for you, but the great thing is even if you are doing it even in laying a trap to expose somebody's faulty thinking, you're still teaching them something.
Hopefully, yeah.
You know, you can't like make them learn it, but you're still teaching them something.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for people. Kerry, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know you have other things that you do, and so make 2 hours and 10 plus minutes available on a Saturday is much appreciated. And I know that we've had I had a lot more viewers for an episode of this on a Saturday than I thought I would have. So
Nice. Very good.
not because of you, but it's Saturday. But and we started at a weird time. For me, normally that's 11:30 is a great time for doing streams on a Saturday because people are just getting out of bed most of the time. But this is recovering from the night of drinking the night before. But I, even like Jen is saying she's gonna be checking out the website, which is
Sweet.
it's very good. And I really appreciate your time, and thanks for doing this, and thanks for fighting the fight out there. It's always encouraging to have other Reformed Christians in the fight. You and Jacob and others are, it's when I need grounding and I need recharging, it's folks like you that I go to. And I'm not I mean it's 100% true. I'm like, sometimes I need to be reminded where I came from, and it helps. So thank you very much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll let you go, and I'll close. And if you got to go, I will message you. I don't know if you know this, but I have it set up that if you want to, you should be able to use it from your end if there's anything you wanted to clip out. So
okay.
All right.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Now I can say all the misogynistic, patriarchal things I wanted to. No, I'm kidding. My audience would end me. Here we go. Oh, there we go. I like that better. You do not need that close up. You do not want the close up. Here, yeah. You do not know, not that. This. Anyway, folks, you guys, it's been a while since I've done one of these from this perspective, especially from a Reformed theological perspective, and talking about some stuff about libertarianism and why it's important to be able to understand how it can mold and shape into Christianity, and how you can still hold views that are consistent with Christianity and consistent with what a lot of people mistakenly think of as being Republican conservatism, and be a Christian and still be a libertarian. So make sure you go check out the Libertarian Christian Institute. Check out Kerry's work. The links are in the description, and it's been in the chat as well. I'm gonna put the chat back up there real quick. So I cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in. I hope you'll share this out. Hig Homestead, May 1st, no kings. I guess it depends. It depends on what you mean by no kings. It would have been a great conversation for you to be here for this entire thing, because most of the people that go to the no kings events actually do want kings. They're all for and favor of their guy being the king and making decisions for everyone else. Most of the no kings people want to tell everyone else that they have to stay home when the government says to stay home, and wear masks when the government says to wear masks. And they want you to their guy to take all of your money and spend it on other people. And a lot of the no kings people also are all in favor of like giving money to Ukraine to fight wars. So, and the Republicans all want kings as well. So the only truly consistent no kings position is libertarian thought and philosophy. And so I'd encourage you, Hig Homestead, to go back, if you are a no kings adherent, go back and watch this from the beginning of my conversation with Kerry, and be swayed, if you would. Because the truly no kings perspective, like I said, is libertarian thought. So Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Like I said, I've been very happy with the amount of people that stopped in and watched for even a few minutes. Got a lot more views than I was expecting for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be starting a new series on a story that I have been working on for about a year. And it's a very, very, very important one. I'm going to be doing a short introductory stream tomorrow talking about a case of a young man named Jamie who disappeared on July 4th of 2020. And it is a devastating story. It is a tragic story. It is an infuriating story. And it is definitely wrapped up in some government malfeasance and police corruption. And I sure hope you guys will tune in for that. So I don't know for sure what time I'm going to be launching that stream. I have some things I need to do to finish getting that ready and make sure that the very first episode of that Justice for Jamie series is out of the gate on fire for you all. So please be watching for that. And like I said, please tune in and share. And if you're watching this on playback, thank you for being here. Oh, hey, Mercedes. Blake is doing as good as can be expected. I'm going to be releasing his official music video for the song that I put together for him. The lyrics I wrote, and then I had AI write the music. I'm not going to lie. I'm not a musician. I'm just a writer. And if you guys like my writing, if you're interested in my writing, please check out my Substack. It's pretty easy to find. I'll put a link to it in a comment, or not in a comment, but in a note. But please do check out my Substack if you haven't before. And once again, for the channel members, thank you so much for everything you do. And Natalie, if you're watching this, she's my volunteer researcher. Thank you so much for all the research work that you do for me, Natalie. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I'm going to go carry mulch and stuff around for a while, and then I'm going to work out. Didn't feel so good this morning when I woke up and decided to do some work instead and then do the stream. But I got to get my workout in. I'm targeting 155 for my weight by the end of the summer. And I'm about 15 pounds away from that as we speak. So my friends, until next time, fight for your freedom. It is yours. Fight for your liberty. It belongs to you. And as always, Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at